It has become popular in some circles of the gun world to complain about the increased use of optics. These complaints typically focus on concerns about alleged durability issues with optics and alleged training problems concerning marksmanship. The solution provided is that you should be starting with iron sights instead. In this video, we'll address perceptions of the use of iron sights and their role in marksmanship training.
If guys don't start on iron sights, they start with a scope, I think there's a skill set missing in their shooting. So you need to learn to understand front sight acquisition and line it up with the rear sight, and then being able to do that not at 25, 30 yards, but doing it at 150, 200 yards.
That is, of course, the popular narrative. Notice it's a lot of I think and I feel. What kind of data do we have to back this up? Early marksmanship programs, particularly in the military, started with iron sights because that was the only kind of sight you had available. Issue optics weren't even an option until recently. If iron sights are somehow key to higher level marksmanship skills and the use of optics is a distraction, then the entire era when iron sights were the only option available should have seen a high point of marksmanship training. The fact is, published reports of military training decades before any optic was general issue found that there were flaws with training methodology back then as well. Iron sights didn't fix it. In terms of actual studies comparing different sighting options, one was done by the U.S. Army Research Laboratory. They compared the hit rate with soldiers given an equal opportunity to learn on 4 different sight systems. These include iron sights, a 1-to-6 power optic, a 1 power M68, that's the close combat optic, and the issue ACOG, the M150. The conclusion of this report was that hit rate was generally increased when shooters were allowed to use an optic, provided they were given equal opportunity to zero and practice with it. Iron sights gave a lesser result, particularly when used at increasing distances. Tests at closer range, particularly with handguns and test subjects that had mixed amounts of experience, found that optics didn't always give an advantage. The key there was the experience level of the shooter with the sight system in particular. If they had more experience with iron sights, they would typically have better results with that. Addressing concerns that not using iron sights was somehow causing problems, the U.S. Army reinstituted a program during initial entry training which required soldiers to start with iron sights. Colonel Fernando Guadalupe Jr., commander of the Leader Training Brigade, in charge of one of the Army's largest initial entry training or basic training commands, instituted the change. He stated that much of the time will be devoted to shooting and qualifying with front and rear backup iron sights to ensure soldiers become more familiar and more disciplined with their weapons. And the data to validate this change? Coming from the same person that instituted it. The Army does not currently have any data to suggest that any soldiers have been unable to hit their targets in combat because their optics failed and they were not trained enough on how to use their iron sights. That's from the person who insisted we got to start with iron sights. The previous reports I quoted in this video did not even attempt to showcase what effect training with one sight first may or may not provide. All of this concept of the importance of training with iron sights is pure conjecture. Now, before you get too upset with me, I'd like to point out I've earned 5 different master level or distinguished level ratings from national organizations in different kinds of shooting. 4 of the 5 of those were done with iron sight firearms. The one that allowed for optics routinely had side events requiring iron sights. I like iron sights. I am certainly not opposed to training or shooting with them. What I am opposed to is the idea that forcing everyone to shoot with iron sights, even when their general issue firearms are optically sighted, that's a mistake. Have people start learning with whatever their actual issue equipment is and focus on that first. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And share this with a shooter or soldier or Marine that you know that's insisting that you gotta start with iron sights